South Africa. Improvement since 1994. So here's my thesis statement. South Africa has improved as a country since 1994 because of their extensive focus on education, because of the economic growth, and because of their focus on aid to the poor part of the population. So here's my disposition. Education. In recent years, South Africa has devoted substantial amounts of their yearly budget to education. About 19.7% of their total yearly budget goes to funding their education system, which is quite large in comparison with other countries, especially in Africa. This is to tackle a great big issue in South Africa, which is unemployment. Unemployment is an issue that comes from the pre-abolishment of apartheid era, when the white minority ruled the country. Back then, the black population was held away from certain subjects in school, so that they wouldn't be able to do certain jobs and take certain kinds of work in the country. For example, they held them away from any administrative work and such, so that they would never be able to form factions against them, and they also wanted them to keep away from a lot of jobs for the whites. So they wanted the black population in general to remain a workforce for hard labor. So ANC, who is ruling the country today, want to involve the black youth more, so that they may tackle this big unemployment issue, and they have succeeded so far. From 2004 to 2014, there was a 137% increase in the number of black graduate students who actually got a degree. So that is a really big improvement in 10 years, and I'm sure that it has improved further since then. The country is also attractive to students abroad. For example, in total, 42,594 students come from across the world to study in South Africa. 10,000 of these from America, a country with a quite good education system, and also a lot from other African countries. So you can understand that the education system is in South Africa is one of the best of the African continent. GDP growth in recent years. Since the abolishment of apartheid, there's been a great increase in GDP, and there's been a big economic growth. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, and is a measurement of the total value of all goods and services produced in South Africa in a year. So from 1996 to 2011, there was a tripling only in 15 years, and this is really an amazing improvement. There's also been a 50% improvement in real GDP per capita in 17 years, and this doesn't seem as big. However, you have to take into account that the population has been growing for all this time, and therefore it may seem a little bit smaller than what you could have imagined. There's certain issues that's holding back the economic growth of South Africa. For example, the lack of competent workers. As you know, there's a great big unemployment issue in South Africa. I believe there's about 25% unemployment rate in South Africa. 1 in 4 don't have a job, and that is quite serious. So that is holding the economic growth back. Moreover, after the economic crisis of 2008, China's demand for commodities fell dramatically, and this affected the South African economy very much. You see, China is the biggest export country for South Africa, as they need a lot of commodities to produce all of their products. As you know, there's a lot of products being produced in China because it's cheap. So they need a lot of commodities for that. But after the financial crisis, their demand for commodities fell, and this affected the South African economy. So since 2011, there's been a great big fall in the GDP, and that comes from the reasons I have already mentioned. However, they also have a problem with corruption in South Africa. There's been rumors going with the former president Zuma around corruption, and with other important members of the leading party ANC. So this has made a lot of people uncertain whether they want to invest in South Africa or not. Regardless of these problems, they are really important, of course, but regardless, there's been a great big increase in the GDP since 2002, as you can see on the chart, and especially since the abolishment of apartheid. So the problems are important, and you have to face them to continue the big economic growth, but I am certain that it's still a big improvement. And so poverty aid. Approximately 50% of the South African population live beneath the poverty line, and I believe about 25% of these, or 25% of the population, live in extreme poverty, which means on $1 a day. There's some problem. There's of course a big unemployment issue in South Africa, as I've mentioned several times, and the South African government has done have done several measures to decrease the amount of poor people in the population. They've focused on education, as I've said, and they've also helped the economic growth, and these are two really important steps, because education can help people get a job, and economic growth help make jobs in the country, as well as raising wages and so job creation is perhaps the most important part in exterminating poverty. If people get a job, a stable job, they are able to support their families, they are able to buy food and water as necessary, and they're able to perhaps invest in other important parts of their lives, and so their general value of life will increase. The South African government has gone by several means to create more jobs in the country, and they have created a lot of jobs since the abolishment of South Africa. I believe they've created perhaps 5 million jobs. However, it's not enough for the growing population yet, so they will have to continue on working on that problem. But they're doing as much as they can, and they have, for example, skin enhancing training, which is made to help the population be more attractive on the job market, and also make people more competent when it comes to creating new businesses and such. They also give financial support and non-financial support to startup companies and people who wish to create jobs in South Africa. So in conclusion, a lot has improved since the abolishment of apartheid, and big parts of the population has gotten a better life since then, thanks to these improvements. There are still a lot of problems to tackle, the big unemployment issue and the recent decrease in the GDP are two great big problems. However, it seems that both trends are turning in a positive direction, and I believe that South Africa will continue to improve in the years to come under their new president, Cyril Ramaphosa.